Welcome to Groom Scroll. Bum, bum, bum. Like, you know what I mean? There should be like a little intro.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be it. I'm just going to add some noise to it.
Because I actually have had a number of people reach out specifically about the Epstein episodes and say like, this was a really helpful way for me to like wrap my head around what it is, because it's like so big and I didn't really understand it and I don't want to read it. Like, it's like, no, it's
that
totally
makes
fair.
me so glad to know.
Yeah.
I've gotten like 2 or 3 of those messages, and that's really all I wanted. Also make it digestible in a way, for other people who stayed away from it, but who are ready to have opinions about the whole case, but maybe they're just like so far behind. So it feels so good to know that the episode is, and it's really climbing our charts as far as the most downloaded and listened to episode.
It is such a complicated one that I think people want to understand it. And then I also think if you're hearing about it from a source that like you trust, right? You're not listening to some like crazy aluminum foil hat person or some MAGA person. You know what I mean? I think that would be, because I'm also listening to the Nobody's Girl book right now as well.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Working my way through that.
I haven't started reading mine yet, but
it's heavy. It's interesting to hear about the back end of like the Epstein, like the settlement, and how like the survivors weren't like included in it, like from a survivor's point of view. Like the back end of it is like really interesting. That part to me has been like the most interesting to listen to, and her talking about like her lawyer and the meetings that she had to go through and like the process of navigating all of that has been like the most interesting part to me. If you read the book, we could just have an episode where we talk about the book and we talk about what, whatever new horrors have unfolded by then.
But today we're going to be talking about not real horror.
A horror movie.
A fictional horror movie called Weapons.
Weapons? The fuck?
I don't know. I love saying it that way. Weapons, a 2025 horror movie. Thriller, psychological thriller. It's a scary movie. Let's just say it's a scary movie. It was written, directed, and produced by Zach Kreger. And if you're wondering, that's Zach with a C-H. And I meant to say with an H.
Great. C-H.
I meant to say just H, but then I saw the C in my notes. Okay. Zach with an H, Kreger, who also directed and wrote a movie called Barbarian, which was very successful. I have never seen it, but it does.
I've never seen it either.
Interesting, and it's kind of what got him wanting to do something new, like a new project. So I was kind of surprised to see that this movie was like, because it was so big and popular. Like I thought there would be a bigger name behind it. This was my pick, Weapons, because I still can't think of who it was, but a fellow female friend was like, I really think you'd like this movie. You got to watch this movie. But I really wasn't expecting it to have so much symbolism of how we use kids, and just also, I think, commentary on gun control, perhaps. I don't know. I'm excited to get into it. But you recently saw this movie. I swear, I thought you were the person that was like, you got to watch this movie. You'll love it. But you like just recently watched it, correct?
It's true. I finally got around to it. Sidebar, the director produced Companion, which was our last Groom Scroll.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had wanted to see it, and then I had somebody in my life who saw it and they were like, oh my God, it was so crazy. Like, one of those like, oh, it was just like the craziest, scariest movie I ever saw. So then I kind of got the frights, and I was like, oh God, I don't know. And I watched it. I was like, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like the scariest movie I've ever seen. I told my nephew afterwards, I was like, I didn't think it was that gross. And he was like, dude, what? Like, I like ripped a person's face in half. And I was like, oh yeah. But
yeah, and bashed a person's face in.
It's true. Here's my, I'm going to say excuse. My brain goes into special effects mode and I start thinking about how they did it. And I don't think about I'm not empathizing with the character having their face ripped open. I am thinking about like, was that practical effects or was that CGI? Like, was that made out of a silicone or more of a latex based situation? Like, I go into like,
Nerd.
yes, I do. I go into like severe nerd mode. And especially when it involves kids, I always think like,
Yes.
how did they do this in a way that didn't also traumatize these kids? So like, are these actually just, actors of a smaller stature and then they're like superimposing the kids' faces on them? Or did they have the kids rip up, something that looked like a turkey or something and then they CGI her face? Like that's where my head goes, is like logistics mode instead of like, oh my God, this guy's having his head bashed in the kitchen. So I disassociate from the violence in like to tech mode. So
Okay.
I am not the point of that rant. Do not ask me if a movie is gross, because I'm probably going to give you a really fucked up answer and I'm probably going to tell you it's not. And then you probably will be traumatized from watching the movie. So ask Diana if a movie's gross.
I didn't think it was gross per se. I thought it had a few jump scares. I really thought the
Yeah.
scariest thing was Aunt Gladys's
Mhm.
face and the children running. I don't know why, but the kids running at night with their weird little arms was fucking weird and creepy and
Yeah.
haunting. But I watched it alone and I was okay. I was able to sleep
Yeah.
with the lights off, and I would say it is gory because yes,
Yeah.
the whole, and if that's not your thing, or if if you don't like that, then there's only a few parts, but it can be gory. But yeah, I think it's also funny. Like there's some legitimately funny just moments in it. And yeah, so you have the IMDb pulled up. Maybe you have the internet right there. Can you
Yes, I
give
do.
us a synopsis? I do too, I guess, but
Diana, we're recording on the internet right now.
the synopsis of the
Weapons,
movie, if you will.
IMDb. When all but one child from the same class mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The synopsis doesn't mention, though, that the movie is told by different perspectives, which is pretty cool. So we see Justine. Well, first of all, okay, yeah. We see Justine's perspective. Justine is the teacher, played by Julia Gardner. It's her class where the 17 kids went missing. There's only one little boy left named Alex, and her,
Poor
the
little
teacher.
Alex.
I know. So we see Justine's point of view. We see Archer's point of view, which who is played by Josh Brolin, and he's the dad. He
is aging.
He is a daddy.
Fine wine. Hot in the Goonies and still hot now.
You know what? Teach their own, Sarah. Yeah, okay. I mean, he's handsome. He's handsome. I would. Who am I kidding? I would. I'd climb that tree. Okay,
you think you're too good for him?
No. I if he could seduce me, I would be down. Yeah. So he plays a dad of one of the kids in the class. And then we also see it from Paul, who is a cop. He's not investigating the case. He just knows Justine. And then
he knows Justine.
Oh, he knows her in the biblical sense.
Yes.
And yeah, so we see it from three other points of view. James, who's kind of like a side character, Marcus, who is the school principal, and finally Alex, who is the one remaining child.
I thought it was interesting to kind of have it like bebop around, because I feel like you were able to have a little bit more empathy, because definitely like the teacher, she, it opens with her just getting a lot of shit from the community of everybody thinking she's the reason these kids disappeared because they were all in her class, and everyone kind of like attacking her. And, and you're seeing it from her point of view. It's very like, oh my God, these parents are being ridiculous and it's so unfair. And then you see it from the parents' point of view and it's like, well, yeah, you would just be lashing out at anybody or everybody because you want, where the fuck is your kid? And where the fuck are these other 16 kids at, And it makes sense that you would be lashing out. And then it makes sense the police would be like, everyone's mad at us because we haven't figured it out. Like, so I do think it does a good job at kind of just showing all the different aspects of like a traumatic event, right? And like how it can impact like all these different people. but that the human instinct very often can be to like turn on each other instead of having empathy for each other in the middle of it. I don't know. What did you think about the multiple points of view?
I liked it. I like that it also kind of moved the story along,
Mm-hmm.
chronologically. And the way that they did it too, because we see, so obviously, listeners, we talk about the whole movie in here, but spoiler alert, when we see Marcus, the school principal, doing the creepy arm run with
Mm-hmm.
the gunk on his face.
Dude, that was the scariest part. His fucking bug eyes, dude. His
His bug
fucking bug
eyes.
eyes were stressing me the fuck out.
The
That
bug
was the one part
eyes.
where I was all like, no, I don't like it. Like, it was
The
really
use,
upsetting.
this is the thing I'll say about like what made it scary to me was also the use of the human body. Like that
Mm.
scene where the mom is just like walking out in the dark and it's just silence and then she's cutting Julia Garner's hair. Oh, ew, ew. It was so fucking creepy. The use of like awkward body movements and silence and violins, terrifying. What was I saying? Oh yeah,
Points,
Marcus.
multiple point of view. Yeah, okay.
Yes, when we see him running, like we don't know like what happened to him, between when he's just a school principal completely normal and when he is like a rabid animal trying to kill the teacher, the Justine, the teacher.
I didn't know what to expect. It was definitely not a predictable movie, which I enjoyed. There were definitely aspects of it that were like very like art housey. That was kind of fun, like the big giant gun floating over the house. You're doing something like creative that's kind of like out there, which I just don't feel like you get a
Yeah.
lot in movies anymore. I feel like things are just like either really normal or really fucking nuts. Like I felt like the movie did a good job at like being nuts, but also not totally over the top, like A24 bizarro boobs falling out of your ear kind of a thing, like the substance. I really liked this, and I liked when you brought up the idea of doing for a Groom Scroll. At first, I was kind of like, "Huh," and I was like, "Oh yeah, duh." It's kind of like the whole premise of the movie is like controlling children. So yeah, like it was kind of cool to think back on it after having watched it already, like under that lens of like a Groom Scroll was kind of interesting to kind of go back because my brain was just kind of in like wee horror movie mode. You know what I mean? I wasn't like thinking about it that way.
So there are a few scenes and like there's some dialogue that definitely, like for example, when Marcus and the teacher Justine are in his office and he's saying to her, like, you have a pattern of overstepping professional boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying, like, oh, I hugged a crying little boy, throw me in jail, and he's saying, like, you can't give kids rides
Yeah.
home. And she's like, well, she lived close to me and why not? It was raining or whatever she says. And so when you watched it the first time, you remember kind of thinking about the boundaries and crossing the lines that we've talked about, or were you just really like horror movie?
I mean, that part definitely made me think more about like what we talk about a lot is that a lot of the red flags can also be signs of just a really dedicated teacher. You know what I mean? And that's where my mind was kind of out of like, so far what I can tell of this character or what the vibe kind of seems of her is more just a person that probably just cares a lot about the kids and maybe doesn't make like great decisions for
Yeah, it's
boundaries
not perfect. She's human.
because she's prioritizing like comforting that kid in the moment, not prioritizing like, is this an appropriate way to be comforting this kid in this moment? Yeah. And then like when they have that kind of town hall meeting where all the parents are screaming at her and like, what did you do? And like, you must have done something to them.
They
and
want
like,
someone to blame.
yeah. But then it did also make me kind of be like, well, shit, dude, I don't know. What did she do to these kids? Like, that is weird.
So bringing it back to the gun, Josh Brolin's character, Archer, the dad, one of the dads of one of the missing kids, he has a dream where he is chasing his kid, Matthew, I think is his name. In the dream, he's talking to his kid and he looks up and sees like an assault rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the number 217. Question, what did you think about when you saw the gun? It's not really connected to the story in any way.
Mm-mm.
So like why the gun and why the number 217? Do you have any theories about either of those?
Well, the 217 was the time that they all ran away.
But why 217? Like, what does that number mean?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't go into some like big conspiracy theory about it, right?
I feel like
Was
numbers,
it
there's always something behind numbers in movies or shows.
Oh, well, I don't know. You have to do a deep dive about it. I don't know. Is that some kind of significance to 17? I mean, that moment I definitely kind of was like, what the fuck's happening? Like, what? Why is there a giant gun in the sky? Like, where is this going? Because at that point in the movie, you know that it's the auntie, right? Like, I think by that point, like, you know that she's up to no good. Definitely threw me, but again, considering the fact that it was about children, like my brain went to like school shootings and just kind of the idea as a parent in America, that's probably the thing you are the most concerned about happening to your kid, especially like as a
Yeah.
class, right? If
Oh,
if a
that's such a good point.
class in America is going to just disappear, it's going to be because they're going to be shot, not like because they're going to be turned into voodoo dolls by a fucking fugly ass auntie. You know what I mean? Like that's not usually what's going to happen.
So the first time I watched it, because I watched it again in preparation,
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like, yeah, what the fuck? Where's this? What's this gun got to do with anything? And then immediately my mind went to school shootings and, made that kind of connection. But I did do not a deep dive, but I did some research on what the people of Reddit are
I was going to
saying.
say you went on Reddit.
Yeah. The most reliable of sources,
Yeah.
to see just what the theories are out there. And so there were some interesting ones, but ones that I noted, someone said that 217, it's a commentary on gun violence and how much gun violence kills our kids in schools and in their neighborhoods. So someone said that in 2022, there were 217 votes needed to ban assault weapons. Obviously that didn't happen. Someone else said that it's connected to Parkland and that it's something with the numbers of so many. I think it was like 17 kids killed in 16 seconds. I don't know, something like that. That one, I don't know,
Okay.
didn't really make sense to me. And then the last one, which I don't know, might be the most realistic one if there really is a reason, is that there's 2 survivors in the classroom and 17 missing
Mm-hmm.
kids.
That would make
So,
sense.
yeah.
I'm also reading that some people are thinking it's apparently the director has confirmed that it's a nod to The Shining, which because the room in The Shining that's like the scary room is 237. But then I'm like, why wouldn't
Yeah.
you have just made the time 237 then though?
I
Like, do you know what I mean?
because the original room was supposed to be 217, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. Well, then that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yes, that would make
So,
sense too.
if the 2022 thing is real about 217 votes needed, I don't know. There's crazy coincidences. Numbers are magic, truly. Okay, so yes, I also you mentioned how she wasn't thinking about Alex when she was saying that. She was like, I would feel so much better if I could just talk to him, because so the kids go missing and then Alex is put in a different classroom and Justine is given like some time off, and then eventually she comes back to work and she's like, I would really like to talk to him. And Marcus, the principal, is like, no, you can't do that. We've talked about it. You saying you would feel so much better, that right there is like you're thinking about yourself and what you need
Mm-hmm.
over him and like his well-being and what he's been through. And then then he specifically says, you aren't a parent, you're a teacher. There's a difference, which also obviously reminded me of what we've talked about with boundaries and teachers and dedicated teachers. And sometimes, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the boundaries that get blurred, even if she is a person who has substance use issues or substance abuse issues and maybe makes bad choices and self-sabotages, she's still a good teacher who cares about her kids, but also still has to maintain those professional boundaries. I don't know. It was interesting to kind of take all those things into consideration. And then so eventually she follows Alex home. Huge no, but she does it.
Yep.
It's part of the story. So she follows him home and she's like peeking into his house and she sees things that would be huge red flags, such as that there's newspaper taped up against the windows
Yep.
and like all the lights are off inside and you can kind of see inside and it looks like it's filthy. And then she sees 2 people just sitting there in the dark with
Being
looking
fucking weird.
all disheveled and being weird. And so she calls the principal and says, like, I have a concern and you need to do a house call. And she even says to him, she's like, if a child's welfare is in question, by law, you have to call CPS by law. And Marcus is like, I'm not authorized to make house calls, which I know it's a movie. I know it's a movie, but I'm like, motherfucker, yes, you are.
Or you can
Yeah.
call the police and they do it. Like if you are doing a wellness check, yeah, it's probably going to be the police doing it or something, but you still need to make sure it gets done. You
Yeah,
don't just
he
be like,
should
that's
have
none of my
called-
business.
Exactly. He should have, in my opinion, the correct next step in this procedure should have been calling CPS. But what he decides to do is Child Protective Services. But what he decides to do is invite the parents in for a meeting, and they don't show up. Instead, Aunt Gladys shows up.
Which
in her
I kind of wish I had watched this movie earlier so that I could have dressed up like her for Halloween. Because what a delightful character. Like
there were a few
she's
I saw.
fucking great, dude. Like I was like, the character design on her is just so fucking crazy and wonderfully bizarre.
Yeah, so that's the first time we actually meet her, because we see her kind of pop up all creepy for a second or two.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we actually see her, and he tells her, I have to actually talk to the parents. You're not a legal guardian.
To say, like, that whole scene of him interviewing her, I felt like that was such a classic example of like grooming an adult, right? Like just the way that she like dances around all the questions and like kind of talks shit about the parents in a way that positions her to be like, well, I'm here to help them because they can't handle this. And like, you know, we're doing the best that we can. And you're like blowing smoke up his ass, you know, kind of using humor to try to de-escalate or tiptoe out of strange questions. And also I think just something about like the power of just, being fucking weird, you know, like just like on a human level, like how distracting it is from the real issue that like everything about her is just so odd, you know, that like it's so distracting that he doesn't even notice her like stealing shit from his office because he's so just like, because she looks fucking nuts and she's like and acting kind of nuts, you know, and you're just kind of like what?
Yeah, you don't know if like, oh, this is someone who's maybe just a little senile or not all there, or this is someone who's just really quirky, or, you know, you don't want to be prejudiced or anything like that. So yeah, I think you're so right. When people are, uncomfortable by any kind of intense presence, it's hard. Are you making the right decisions or informed decisions, or, you know, are you like, thinking things through?
Yeah, and you're like weaponizing kindness, you know what I mean? Where you're kind of like, oh, I'm just a little old lady, so I'm going to be fucking weird, and you're going to let me get away with it. Like,
yeah, that's so true. And I was thinking too, so I've been, I started watching Bones recently.
Nice.
And I have been thinking about how, like, you know, in this show and perhaps in real life, FBI agents, they have to assume everyone's a suspect in certain, you know, certain situations. And sometimes you have to just like, you're trying to pressure someone to confess. And if you think someone's a suspect, you know, you're not going to bother with niceties. You're going to maybe try and intimidate them. And so I was thinking about that as I was watching Weapons and thinking about how Marcus is like, he's telling her, I really need to talk to the parents or I'm going to have to call Child Protective Services. But he's doing it in such a way where he's trying so hard to keep her comfortable. And it's like, if you really suspect something is going on, like, should we bother with that? Or should we be more direct like the police?
Well, but that's also a perfect example of something we talk about all the time, which is that fucking school administrators are not police officers. They should not be investigating things. They should not be interrogating people. They should not be interviewing people unless it's for like a job interview. Like, I do think that there is an exorbitant amount of misplaced like responsibility on, you know, school administration, not to report, like they should report and stuff, but that there's that illusion that like, well, I have to do the investigation to decide if this is worth telling the cops about. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. You tell the cops and they figure out if it's worth following up on. Like, you just have to let them know that something is a little off. And I understand that that can feel scary because you feel like you're going to get people in trouble, blah, 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 blah. But that's how we end up with half of the fucking stories you and I talk about on this podcast, is that people, you know, well, I don't want to get this person in trouble, or, well, I don't know, maybe it's just a misunderstanding. And it's like, well, you would also think in the situation of weapons, 17 kids just went missing, but like perhaps you should just abundance of caution. Like, and it's the only kid left of this whole class, and the teacher's being like, something is up with this fucking kid. You think you would be like, we're calling the cops
and
immediately.
then this woman shows up.
Yeah, this lady who looks like a paper doll that was left out in the rain for 40 years. Like, no, it's you would just call the police. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I hope so.
But yeah, I think it is a good example of just that kind of like, this is not a person who is equipped to deal with this situation. And they're not like dealing with it correctly.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, not even a critique, because I understand for the sake of a story, you got to do things. If we can believe that the Belcher kids are never going to graduate high school, we can believe that this principal, whatever, you know, but this is not a great example of the appropriate protocol for what to do when you have concerns about a child's well-being. But for the sake of the story, I understand why it went down this way.
Yeah, like Justine definitely, like, you know, she went to her higher up and like reported, you know, she did what she was supposed to be doing, but
she should have
the principal
reported. That's
but could she report?
Yeah, she has.
Like directly. Okay,
she's a mandatory reporter.
Then what the fuck? Yeah, but she reported to him. So do you think that's doing her job?
No. That
seems out of character, but you're right. They had to move the plot along. They had to get the creepy auntie to the principal's office.
Exactly.
If you had 17 kids disappear and the one kid that's left from that class, their parents don't show up and this fucking wackadoodle does, I'd be like, that bitch stole those kids. Like, I would be like, immediately, I'd be like,
Yeah, and you're telling me that the parents can't come to school? Like, something's happening. Come on.
Great. She's a witch, right? Like, so she's clearly supposed to be like a witch. So I also don't know if it's supposed to be this idea that, does she have some kind of power just in conversation? You know what I mean? Like, is there supposed to be some kind of level of like that going on? But it didn't really seem like it, because usually in movies they'll do like a little like, you know, they stare, or there's like a music change that kind of lets you know like, now she's in control. Yeah, it's just like when she does actual spells, like, and then they just turn into like puppets that she can control and like, weaponize.
And they growl. They have bug eyes.
Crazy. Dude, he's the only one with bug eyes. He's the only one with bug eyes, though. No one else gets bug eyes.
He's the only one with that. But the parents at the end, when everyone's eyes get bigger. Like, if you look, everyone's eyes kind of, they don't get
he's
as
got
buggy.
way bigger real fast.
That guy, it looked like he was missing eyelids, that guy. Yeah, so after we meet Aunt Gladys, because we see that when the story is being told by Marcus's point of view. After Marcus, we see Alex's point of view. That's how we get to the end of the story, is through Alex's eyes. He ends up saving the day. And I thought that was pretty cool, that the kid ended up saving everyone. And the way that he did it too, like he also is weaponizing the kids, doing what he learned from her. That scene, oh my God, that scene when it was a funny movie, when she's flailing around running away.
That part was funny.
That part was hilarious. Oh my God. And then we find out that Josh Brolin's kid was actually the bully of Alex, one of Alex's bullies. And that part too, when we see Josh Brolin's character in the dream that he's having and he's talking to his kid, one of the things that he's saying is like, I'm sorry I never said it when you were here. I've always wanted to say it because I feel it all the time. And what he hasn't been able to say is I love you to his little boy. And his little boy is a fucking bully at school. So I wrote down in my notes, lessons. Tell your kids you love them so they aren't little shits.
Yep.
And make the house call.
Yeah, those are good notes.
Yeah. So
don't invite your auntie to come stay with you. No, that's not true. I am an auntie. You should let your weird old auntie come stay with you, because I am a weird old auntie.
Even if she's a witch.
listen, my nephews, I won't do this to you. Yeah, I mean, I also thought just the manipulation that happened to him, you know, they show like all the kind of at the house stuff, like after she shows up and she turns his parents into like weird zombie puppets, and he has to like feed them and he has to like take care of that. Like that part made me so sad when they like showed him like feeding his parents and like washing them and like taking care of them, like really
when
bummed
she could
me
have
out.
made him feed themselves. Like, you know, that was part of the manipulation of like, look what I can do. And she made him feed his own parents and then all the kids.
I just kept thinking about it, like just the idea of there are kids that have to take care of their parents. You know what I mean? Like there are kids whose parents are addicts or have mental health problems or, you know, all these different, I don't know. It just kind of made me think of just like there are so many children that do have to take on adult roles when they're young and they have to like do things that kids shouldn't have to do and how shitty that is. But then how that also makes those kids really susceptible to grooming and manipulation, right? Because they've already been put in adult situations. So when other adults try to put them in adult situations, whether it be sexual or otherwise, like it feels familiar to them because they've already been put in these other adult situations. So yeah, I thought the movie like was playing on a lot of levels of just kind of the idea of like things that we're doing to kids as a society, right? And like the ways that adults are kind of letting kids down. Yeah, but then when he like gets I thought one of the spookiest parts besides the bug eyes was when all the kids are found and they're just standing in the fucking basement, Blair Witch style, just fucking standing there. It's very spooky. Like it was just really creepy. Like I was standing in the dark and I was like, ew,
little kids in the dark. It's just scary.
It's upsetting. They're so little. And then he turns them on Gladys and like they literally tear her ass up. It's pretty crazy. But I also thought that part was really funny because that also to me felt very just like karma, bitch. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like,
I was laughing the whole time at the end of that scene. Just like between her running and between them. Just and I was thinking, I wrote down, this must have been so fun for like if they were kids. And I also was thinking about like the therapy or just like what conversations are being had with these kids about what they're doing and what they shouldn't do in real life and the difference and humanity, you know, like, yeah, all of that. But can you imagine just like running like a fucking rabid raccoon just jumping through fake glass and over couches and stuff? Like they probably had tearing up a pig or whatever the fuck it was. Like they probably had such a fun day on set.
Yes. I will say I did read that the breaking through the glass thing was an adult actor of small stature that they just shot from behind because you could only see the back of that girl's head as that was happening. So I know some of that stuff they definitely didn't use kids for, but the rest of it, it's like, it's just kids running. Like that would be easy to do. It's like, go chase that lady. It's like, wee! It's like, keep your arms straight and back. That's it. The rest of it is
growl.
Just run. Yeah. Like, dude, kids do that shit for free in my neighborhood all the time. They be out there wild, screaming, growling at people. I mean, yeah, I do always think about that in movies, especially horror movies. I'm always like, how do they do this without fucking these kids up? There's that great scene. There's like a behind the scenes shot from the new It movie with what's his butt? Skarsgård.
There's a new one coming out?
No, I mean like the reboot. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yes, where he's checking in on the little girl.
Yeah, like he scares the kids, and then immediately they call Clinton. He's like, "Are you okay?" And he's all like, "Everybody's okay, right?" And they're like, "Okay." And he's like, "Everything's fine." And he's like, still in horrifying makeup, but he's like, "Right, like you know me," like, which I think is nice to see because you know movies we grew up on, they did the opposite, where it was like actors that were playing the bad guys weren't allowed to be around the rest of the cast because they didn't want them to like get to know them as like Tim Curry or something. They wanted them to be scared of him so the kids would act better. And it's like, that's fucked up. Like you're purposefully scaring children. Yeah. So I do have some curiosity about how and I'm sure it's being done now better than it ever has been, but yeah, how they kind of handle that. I would be interested to know how they handled the ripping the auntie apart, because spoiler alert, they tear that lady's face in half with their bare fucking hands.
and they're eating her arms and flesh and
That's what my nephew
eyeballs.
said. He was like, dude, they ate that lady. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. So in addition to being the way that he was manipulating Alex, she flat out also just threatened
Yeah.
because, she was like, obviously, like, don't tell anyone that I'm here. Don't tell them what is going on with your parents. She even said to him, like, I can make them eat each other. I can make them hurt each other. Like, she's
Yeah.
asking him to keep a secret for her. And he gets so mad when he finds out that Justine followed him home. So like now he has this whole responsibility on keeping his parents and all these kids and himself safe. Clearly, I saw a connection there between what groomers do, which is asking and threatening kids to keep secrets
Mm-hmm.
for them.
I know. I felt so bad for him. Like, I mean, I felt bad for all the kids, but obviously you don't get to see or know any of the other kids. But yeah, dude, like when he was making them the soup, I was like, it like almost made me cry. Like I was all like, I feel so bad for this
And
kid.
buying
like,
the soup? Like,
oh
where
my
were
God.
the adults in the
it
grocery
was like
store?
the saddest Home Alone ever. I was like, dude, this is a bummer. This poor fucking kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that was a very clear moment, right? That threat. He's just a kid and he just wants to be safe and he just wants to like have his normal life and he's doing what he's being told. And, he's also feeling guilty because she also tricked him, right, into helping her steal the things from all the kids so that she could do the spell to all the kids. So like, so there's also that shame piece, right, which is such a part of grooming, right, where then it's all like, well, you're part of this too, and you played a part in this, so you're just as guilty as I am, kind of a thing. Like I think there's kind of implication there too, which obviously leads to control. Apparently the way that they shot that is it was literally just like a puppet of her and they just let the kids tear it apart. Holy shit.
Okay, then I really, really hope there was
crazy.
like a debriefing afterwards of that whole thing. Oh my God.
So yeah, they had a puppet, had 12 different cables connecting to controllers to trigger specific violent actions. Yikes. Special effects included where the head was torn apart along with eyes that could be crushed. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this is like a lot of practical effects. That's surprising.
You are jazzed right now reading it.
Man. But I'm really also intrigued by just the kid part of it. There's a whole behind the scenes. I'll check it out.
Okay.
See what it has to say. But you're right. Like, I'm sure they have to talk about, like, we don't poke people's eyeballs out.
Yes. Yes. We don't actually eat people. Okay. So yeah, basically after they rip her face in half and eat her, that's it. That's the end of the movie. Oh, I forgot to mention this whole movie, not the whole, not all of it the whole way through, but there is slight narration and it's narrated by a child, which also fucking makes it creepy.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot about the narrator being a kid.
Yeah. The kid opens up talking about how no one believes this story, but it's true. And what you don't see, you don't hear about it, you don't see about it because the adults in the town were so embarrassed because they messed it up. And so they created some other kind of story to talk about what happened. But it ends.
Which is also
yes!
such a huge part of the problem, right? It's like,
exactly.
Oh, this thing happened and we're never going to talk about it. And we're just going to hope that it never happens again. Beep, bop, a boop, And it's like, dude, that's why we still have school shootings and why we still have fucking teachers or adults in general preying on kids. And, I was in my hometown last weekend and the news had just broke about your former school district having another allegation of abuse from a former employee. And one of my friends from high school was like, man, what the fuck's up with that school district? And I was like, what the fuck's up with all of them, buddy? You're standing like half a mile from one that also had quite a few of those stories, not just me. And he was like, yeah, that's true. Everyone just has this perception that these things won't happen in their own backyard and
that they're not happening anymore.
Yeah. And so same thing with that. So I thought that was interesting in this movie where it was like, people don't talk about it. Because it's just such a like shameful part of our history. And it's like, well, maybe that's something you should be talking about so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
They just have a ban on aunties in this town now.
in windbreakers.
Yeah, they're like, no menopausal, postmenopausal women in windbreakers ever again.
In a Wendy's.
Yeah. If you can't keep your lipstick off your teeth, you're not allowed in this town.
Unless you're Chaperone, then you're invited everywhere. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is, so the little narrator ends the movie. Like, I think the literal last line, Alex's parents, they seemingly never come out of their state. And the other kids are kind of still also under like this just daze. And so the last line of the movie is that some of them even started talking this year. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was interesting. One, that the parents, I don't know, maybe because they're older and their brains are just different. They have less time to come out of the hypnosis or whatever she did to them. But with the kids, like, they're younger and their brains are still growing, and they maybe have more opportunity with intervention to reshape how they come out of this trauma, and that they're talking. It was a thought-provoking sentence to end this movie with. I liked it. I liked the movie a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I think anytime a movie feels kind of unexpected, or you don't know where it's going, or you don't know how it's going to end, is always enjoyable, because I don't know. I feel like you don't get that a lot anymore. We went and saw Scream 7, and literally the first murder, like, I don't know how, but I was just like, that guy's going to get stabbed in his ear. And Carl was like, what? And that happened 2 seconds later. My friend was like, dude, have you seen this before? And I was like, no. And he's like, how did you know? And I was like, because I'm a witch. I was like, I don't know, dude. Because I just could tell where this was going for some reason. You know what I mean? It's just like so many movies
You're good
are
at
so
that.
Predictable.
You knew that the corkscrew was gonna play
because they
into
never
death.
zoom in on things unless they need to. And then
Did they zoom in on that guy's ear?
No, I don't know why I knew the ear thing. I think it's the angle they were shooting it from, though. I was like, he's gonna get it right in the fucking head. Like, I must just watch enough horror movies that I can see these things now. But Weapons, I did not have that feeling. Like, Weapons, I was super just like, oh, she's getting gas. Ah! Why is there a bug-eyed man like running at her? Oh my God. Horrible.
With his arms out. That's so weird. I think it just proves that you're magical.
Thank you. And my magic
really
power is spoiling movies for myself, apparently. What a super, super skill. Okay. Diana, would you suggest Weapons for anybody to watch? Would you give this a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
I would give it a thumbs up for sure. Yeah. It's a thought-provoking movie. Like, I really think it has a commentary on kids, violence against kids, weaponizing kids, gun violence. I really liked it. Like I said, my only thing would be, if you're a mandatory reporter, report. Don't just say, "Oh, I told my principal my job's done."
Yes. Well, thank you, Diana, for your great suggestion to listen or to watch Weapons and discuss it as a Groom Scroll. I don't know that I would have thought of it, but I think it was a good fit.
Thank you, Sarah. So we do have a plan at some point this season. I'm not going to make promises as to when, because I'm learning. But at some point this season, we are planning on doing a Groom Scroll episode about TV shows and perhaps songs. So, listeners, if you have any recommendations for either shows or songs, let us know. Some of the shows that we have in mind right now, just off the top of my head, include Gossip Girl,
Gilmore Girls.
And we're not going to talk like through each episode be forever, but we just overall just talk about, TV shows. So yeah, send us in recommendations and reach out to us. bloomingaftergrooming@gmail.com. It's been a while since we plugged our spots. bloomingaftergrooming@gmail.com is our email address. You can find us on the interweb at bloomingafterpod. On here, the internet, which we are on
the World Wide Web.
bloomingafterpod.com, and then on Instagram and TikTok at bloomingafterpod. Thank you for listening, listeners, and do your best to grow through
what you go through, girlfriend. Well, I'm glad that you had a good time, and I'm sorry that you exorcist puked a bunch of ocean water, but I'm glad you didn't injure any bones this time.
Oh my God. Well, it felt like Exorcist. It was so bad.
But once it was out, were you fine?